Hello, everyone. You guys know what? I stumbled on this report recently that totally caught my attention. It's all about why the crypto market keeps getting XRP wrong. And here's the thing that gets me. XRP has incredible real-world use cases and adoption rates that blow most coins out of the water. So what's the disconnect? Why isn't the price matching up? Turns out there are multiple factors at play here, and I'm going to break them down for you. But what really stood out to me was seeing an official document actually recognize what XRP brings to the table functionally. This is huge because it validates everything I've believed about crypto investing. Real utility is the game changer, always has been. Check this out though. Since the very beginning, only 3 cryptocurrencies have managed to stay in the top 10 rankings continuously. And XRP pulled that off while battling an SEC lawsuit against Ripple. Pretty impressive, right? So which coins made that exclusive list? Bitcoin, ETH, and XRP. That's it. Just those 3 have maintained top 10 status from launch until now, even with tens of thousands of alternatives flooding the market. The competition is absolutely fierce out there, which makes it crystal clear to me that XRP has already proven itself as an early crypto success story. All right, let me dive into this with you. I'll show you the key points from the report, plus I'm throwing in my own perspective on everything, just my unfiltered opinion, really. And listen, I genuinely want to hear where you stand on this, so make sure you leave your thoughts down in the comments. Quick disclaimer before we continue, I'm not a finance professional or anything like that. Just so we're clear, I'm not giving financial advice here. Whatever you do with your money is completely on you, not because of anything I'm sharing. All right, so News BTC actually ran a piece on this. The headline, XRP's price doesn't match its growing real-world use, study finds. Finally, someone's talking about this. They're pulling from research done by Bayberry Capital. I've got their website up right now. This dropped just a few days back. And the title gets straight to the point. Why the market misprices XRP. Bayberry Capital put together this study claiming XRP might be the most poorly understood digital asset out there. Here's their angle. Traders keep treating XRP like it's some random speculative coin when it's actually built as financial plumbing. We're talking settlement and liquidity infrastructure. Their research suggests that most traders glance at a token, look at the price chart, and that's it. The whole system design, the technical framework, the reason it exists, none of that registers. Now, I've got to call this out. I'm not entirely sold on that take. My reasoning? If XRP was just hype with no substance, it wouldn't have survived in the top 10 rankings this long. Period. So while I respect their research, I see it differently on that specific claim. What I do agree with? Yeah, tons of people are just trading it speculatively. Guilty as charged. That includes me too. Okay, so hear me out on this one. I've been thinking about something, and honestly, it feels pretty obvious when you look at it. Most crypto people have absolutely zero clue about what XRP can actually do. Like the practical stuff, they're completely missing it. And you know what would happen if everybody understood what we're seeing here? XRP would already be crushing it in the double digits. Not tomorrow, not next year, literally right now. But here's the problem. They're totally clueless about this. The information just isn't out there yet. That's why I keep coming back to this point. XRP's price tag today is wildly disconnected from what it can actually accomplish in the real world. Everyone else is going to figure it out eventually, but by then, way too late. So we've got this asset class that's still in its awkward teenage phase, right? XRP is hanging out at $2.54 with about $152 billion in market cap. Now, I've got a question for everyone watching. Seriously. Does anyone in our space actually believe XRP won't crack $1 trillion at some point, or even push into multiple trillions? Look, I'm not over here playing fortune teller with prices. I'll be the first to admit I've got no crystal ball for where this goes next. But is that idea really that wild? Because to me, not even close. The entire asset class is worth $3.5 trillion right now. Bitcoin alone is sitting on $2.1 trillion of that pie. Down the road, we're looking at $10 trillion for the whole space, then moving into the tens of trillions, and eventually we're crossing $100 trillion territory. We're at the starting line here, folks. My genuine belief, Multiple coins are going to land in that multi-trillion-dollar club. XRP hitting that level just seems like common sense to me because it's built for actual use cases, and it's proven itself already. We're 13 years deep with this thing. Anyway, all of that brings me to this. The Bayberry write-up has some really fascinating and insightful angles worth checking out. You know what they're doing here? They're basically saying XRP is like those boring infrastructure companies from the dot-com boom. Think about it. Back in the day, who was getting hyped? Not the people making routers and switches. Nobody wanted to hear about that stuff. Everyone was going crazy over anything with a .com at the end. Their whole argument is XRP's stuck in that same weird spot right now. And look, I get it. That actually makes a lot of sense. It's working away in the background doing infrastructure things. So naturally, all the quick flip traders are sleeping on it. This thing moves serious money between networks. That's the job. It's not here to pump your portfolio overnight. Although it absolutely can pull that off too, by the way. And honestly, I'm cool with people speculating on XRP. That's part of the game. You actually need that energy in the mix. The problem is when you really dig into what this thing does, all the technical stuff under the hood, it's just flying under the radar. Their analysis highlights how XRP was specifically built to be this neutral connector between financial systems that otherwise couldn't interact with each other. Now hold on, I've got some issues with how they worded that. Don't get me wrong, the report itself is pretty well thought out. I respect the work they did, but that specific language doesn't sit right with me because, yeah, XRP was absolutely designed to work brilliantly as a bridge currency. That's common knowledge at this point. When they originally designed it, that specific application wasn't even part of the conversation. So yeah, maybe I'm being overly particular about the details here, but think about what needs to line up for that role to work. Regulators have to provide clear rules. Major institutions have to commit to using it. These tokenized payment systems have to scale up globally. And here's what's wild. We're watching it happen in real time. It's legitimately unfolding right now. All those what-if scenarios we kicked around in the community ages ago, seriously, like 10 years back, they're turning into actual events. Tokenized real-world assets, everything we talked about. The thing is, none of this triggers those dramatic overnight price surges. A lot of it develops quietly in boardrooms and back channels, so traders hunting for the next moonshot completely overlook the foundation getting assembled brick by brick. The study also confronts that supply objection critics constantly repeat. Yeah, XRP's total supply appears enormous at first glance, 100 billion units. That's a staggering figure when you first see it. But Bayberry clarifies why that perspective is incomplete. What's actually circulating in active markets is considerably less. Enormous quantities are secured in escrow mechanisms or held under strict custody protocols. What really counts is the available liquid supply measured against actual network demand. Here's the part everyone overlooks. The vast majority of XRP labeled as in circulation isn't actually available for anyone to buy. Circulation status has nothing to do with whether it's for sale. Look at my situation. Mine's tucked away in cold storage, counts towards circulation numbers, but there's no universe where I'm selling. I'm holding it long term. So what's the actual amount sitting on exchanges where people can buy it right now? It's almost nothing. We're looking at such a small slice of the overall supply, ridiculously small, frankly. This is why I won't stop mentioning it. You wouldn't need some enormous wave of investment to launch prices into ranges that seem unrealistic today. That's a big reason these analysts projecting double-digit XRP numbers make total sense to me. I don't see that as pie-in-the-sky speculation at all. That's my stance. Now add the regulatory situation into the mix, something the market is basically sleepwalking past. XRP secured a legal position in the US that separates it from nearly every other digital asset out there. Bayberry nails this observation. If you study traditional finance, regulatory approval is absolutely critical to how assets get priced. Just wrap your head around that for a moment. You've all seen the Ripple MasterCard news, right? Well, without the SEC coming after Ripple, that partnership probably doesn't happen. Yeah, I said it. The lawsuit we all despised might have actually unlocked something huge. Look, Am I glad the SEC sued them? Absolutely not. That was a nightmare for everyone involved. But hear me out on this, because there's a bright spot buried in all that drama. If Ripple never went through that legal war, XRP would still be floating in limbo with no legal status. We'd be glued to CSPAN hoping Congress would eventually get around to writing rules for utility coins like XRP. And let's be real here, we wouldn't just be waiting back then, we'd be waiting right this second. Nothing would be different. But what's fascinating is how this whole mess created what the researchers describe as one of the starkest imbalances you'll find anywhere in crypto. My take? They nailed it with that analysis. Bayberry goes all in on this tokenized value explosion that's coming, which is something I've been basically yelling into the void about for years. Seeing them center their entire analysis around it, that had me grinning. I'm reading through this report thinking, wow, these folks actually understand what's happening here. Yeah, I picked at a couple minor details, but the core, spot on. Never heard of Bayberry before opening this document, and now I'm like, hell yeah, whoever wrote this knows their stuff. Really clean analysis. What they're pointing out is pretty straightforward once you see it. We're about to watch assets, money, and real-world financial instruments flood onto blockchains. When that happens, all of those separate networks need something to move liquidity between them. The report calls out XRP as an ideal solution for exactly that problem. You and I might be nodding along thinking, duh, obviously. But here's why it works. How the tech is structured. That consensus system that dodges the whole proof of work mess, and years of actual infrastructure already running. XRP was practically engineered for shuttling value across different chains. Everything's pointing that direction now. Think about what happens when tokenized trading volumes go absolutely massive compared to today's numbers. You'll need a neutral asset for settlement, not because traders want it, but because the architecture demands it. Something has to connect everything. XRP does that job. Ripple could disappear tomorrow, and that need still exists. People, companies, major institutions are going to clock this if they haven't already. Recognition comes first. Price movement, that catches up eventually. Okay, so check this out. Their whole conclusion boils down to something wild. XRP's price today is literally just vibing off whatever's hot on crypto Twitter, whatever sensational news just broke, whatever narrative people are spinning that week. Meanwhile, the actual infrastructure, the real machinery that XRP runs on, totally invisible to the market. It's insane when you think about it. And honestly, if you're sitting here right now understanding what I'm even saying, you're part of this absurdly small club of humans who actually know this exists. I'm talking microscopic percentage of the global population. The vast majority of people walking around have never even heard of this stuff. We're genuinely privileged to have stumbled into this knowledge. So Bayberry drops this bomb of an argument. The reason the asset's all wrong on price is because everyone's treating XRP like it's a concert ticket, like it's some one-off thing you flip for quick cash, when really it's more like owning a piece of the venue itself, the whole operation behind the scenes. And once the market shifts its lens and starts paying attention to the system doing the work instead of just watching the token bounce around, we're talking about a violent repricing event. That's precisely why watching XRP Ledger adoption spread across different use cases matters so much. Every piece of that growth loops back and strengthens XRP directly. What the study exposes is this massive disconnect between XRP's actual utility out in the world versus what people think it's worth today. So for anyone who's been riding with XRP through the ups and downs, this analysis actually offers you something refreshing. It flips the script on why we've been stuck in neutral. Instead of doom and gloom, it's more like, oh, we're just early to a party that hasn't really started yet. The entire crypto world is transitioning out of its messy experimental phase, and once things stabilize and professionalize, that's XRP's moment to shine. That's why I'm bullish on the idea that holders are staring at their best chapters still unwritten, not already in the rearview mirror. Think about where smart money moves when an asset class finally matures. It stops chasing memes and momentum and starts hunting for coins that actually plug into infrastructure, that power transactions, that integrate with systems. Utility becomes the magnet. In XRP, it's loaded with practical applications. The real-world function is woven into its DNA. But here's my disclaimer before we wrap. I'm not qualified to give financial advice, and you shouldn't treat this video like a blueprint for your portfolio. If you're clicking buy or sell buttons because of what I just said, that's a recipe for disappointment. Please don't. Catch you in the next video.